Happy Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome into Morning JOX. Conrad Van Order, Damian Mitchell here with you until 7 o'clock. Only 1 hour today, not 5, unfortunately. But we'll just have to make do with the hour that we have because, fortunately, we do have a lot of things that we need to discuss today as we inch closer and closer to the Alabama-Georgia rematch in the SEC championship game coming up on Saturday, and of course all the other great conference title games that we will be enjoying between tomorrow night. You're going to have two, and then you will have you'll have the two G5 ones that everyone's talking about tomorrow, and then you'll have the 4 Power 4 ones on Saturday. And this is how we normally like to start off Thursday shows throughout the college football season, right? And normally we'll go through for Alabama and Auburn and what's the big injury news here, heading into the games. How is that going to impact it? And so this week, obviously, we only have one, and it's for the Alabama and Georgia game. And this is not the way that I think some people want to start the show, Damian, but it's safe to say that both of these teams are pretty banged up going into Atlanta on Saturday. And certainly a little bit of a surprise now for Alabama on the injury side of things as well. But again, both sides are going to be banged up. We'll kind of get into that. But the big news for Alabama to start off is that defensive lineman LT Overton, he has been ruled out for the SEC championship game on Saturday. Not exactly sure what he's dealing with injury-wise, but I mean, that's a guy that I have to imagine it's something that happened in practice maybe yesterday, because that was somebody that earlier in the week, you heard. I mean, he talked to the media after practice one day, and he was talking about how much it meant to him to be able to go and play in an SEC championship, and his final year of college football, and after being around the SEC for so long to actually get to go and play in that game, he was really excited for the opportunity, and so now he's not going to get it because of whatever the injury problem that he is dealing with is. So LT Overton going to be out for the Alabama Crimson Tide. That's certainly not something that it's not going to help. We'll just put it that way. But the one good news, I guess, to counteract that a little bit is that if you were to look at the area for Georgia that's probably the most banged up right now, it is their offensive line. And Tim Keenan, he had a quote earlier in the week essentially that, he thought that was going to be the matchup of the game was going to be Alabama's defensive line versus Georgia's offensive line. But he said that he thought that was going to be the matchup of the game because it's the mismatch of the game. And he feels that the Alabama defensive line has a nice little advantage in that matchup coming up on Saturday in the trenches. But now they're going to have to do it without LT Overton. That's going to make things a little more difficult. On the questionable side, we've got 4 guys listed as questionable. Jam Miller, again, from what I understand, I wouldn't necessarily expect him to play, but he is questionable. So there's maybe, the last couple of days have gone a little better than expected. And if he does play, he's not going to be 100%. But even if you can get him out there at 75%, again, especially if it's the Jam Miller we saw in the Iron Bowl, you're going to take it. Even if it's, hey, we're going to get 10 good touches out of you this game, we're going to find a way to make those 10 touches count. Cam Dewberry there on the offensive line, he's questionable as well. He's banged up. And then at tight end, you have both Danny Lewis and Josh Cuevas. Kalen DeBoer said on Sunday when he was speaking to the media that basically he didn't expect Josh Cuevas to be available on Saturday. He's dealing with from what I understand, a broken bone in his foot. And the expectation is that he will still not be available. But again, he's listed as questionable, so I guess you can't totally rule these guys out, and hopefully things continue to progress in the right direction for them one way or the other. But Danny Lewis also questionable. He's been banged up all year long. So, again, it would be nice to have him back, though, because now, you're still rolling with, Caleb Edwards and some of those young guys at tight end that they've gotten some opportunities now, but still, you want your veteran guys in there, especially when it comes to SEC championship time. So, Alabama really, really banged up there. Again, LT Overton, he's out on Saturday. That's the big news there. But again, you look at what Georgia's been dealing with right now as well, and their offensive line pretty banged up going into this one. But for Georgia, at least, all of the people that are out, it's kind of stuff they've already been dealing with. It's not anything that's surprising. So, we'll see how that all plays out on Saturday. But, I guess if you were to take your early thoughts on this, it'd be maybe not the best news for Alabama, but at this point in the season, everybody's hurt, everybody's banged up. You just, you make do with what you got.
Yeah, and the LT Overton injury, I know is going to be his impact is going to be felt when he's not on the football field.
Yeah.
And I think defensively, because of just the depth that you have at the defensive line, you can't necessarily, quote unquote, replace everything that he does. But with the bodies that you rotate and the bodies that you have up there, still feel confident about what that matchup could look like. Because, I mean, you go back to the matchup in Athens, really and truly, it was the battle of the trenches. And really, when you look at Alabama, Georgia, it usually starts up front with both sides, with Alabama's defensive unit, especially over the past couple of seasons, when they've had success, they've been able to generate pressure. And no matter the quarterback that you had, they made him get off key multiple times. And I think, with LT Overton, a guy that's played a ton of football and played in this system for a while, you need that experience. The experience part is what's going to hurt the most, I think. But because of the bodies that you have, you can kind of work around it. But some guys are just definitely going to have to step up and make their presence felt in LT Overton's absence.
Yeah, and this is certainly one of the those cases where, and I understand, right, it's not a one-to-one. They don't exactly play the same role on the defensive side. But in terms of needing people that can go and make life uncomfortable for Gunnar Stockton, this is definitely one of those times where you look back and go, all right, well, it's a good thing that Quay Russaw is going to be available, right? Because I get it. He doesn't play right up front like LT Overton does, but it's another guy that can go and get after the quarterback, cause some havoc there up front for Alabama. So, again, it's good to have a little more depth and some guys getting healthy in that regard as well. And so we'll see, again, how all this plays out coming up on Saturday. But the good news, if you're an Alabama fan, injury news is bad news, but the good news is you're going and playing a Georgia team that in recent memory you have never lost to inside of Atlanta. When you play in Atlanta against Georgia 5-0, doesn't happen. The one time you did lose was in Indianapolis in the national championship game. I will also say, if we're being devil's advocate as well, that was also the only other time that you played twice in the same year, and you won the first time. And
yeah. So that's why you call Mercedes-Benz, you call it Bryant-Denny East.
That is exactly what it is.
Interesting.
That is that not what everyone calls it?
I hadn't heard that.
I thought that was like on the side of the stadium now.
I'll have to go back. It's been a while since I've been over there. It may have it on the side of the building. I'm not exactly sure. But it does seem like that though, because as we kind of get closer and closer to kickoff, it's again, we talked about this after Alabama beat them in Athens early on in the season. It's psychological at this point, because there have been many times, and we talked about it yesterday on Morning Jocks and Three Man Front, that, even Vegas tells you that Georgia, quote unquote, is the better team. But we've seen this matchup so many times that no, they may have the better team on paper, but when they get in between those white lines, it seems a little different. And it's kind of unique because you kind of see on social media the temperature check. It's every single time Alabama and Georgia play, at least for the past couple years, it's more of Georgia trying to convince themselves that they can get it done than Alabama having to say that, hey, this is kind of what we do. Like, it's no offense to y'all. Yeah, y'all are a great team. Y'all are building it up. We love Kirby Smart and everything that he did for us when he was at Alabama, but more times than not, whenever we see this matchup, it usually goes into our favor. So it's a rivalry that's kind of started to manufacture, but it still feels as though it's Alabama's game to lose. Like, it's kind of just, until proven otherwise, how can you definitively say that Georgia's going to get it done? Because we've seen great Georgia teams fall to Alabama multiple times, and the one time you got them, yeah, you got them when it mattered. It was the national championship. But other than that, we usually know how this game is going to go. No offense to Georgia fans. I'm just this is factual information.
I was about to say you're 10-1 in your last 11 games against them. So you got to feel, again, it's one of those things where every time this game gets played, just about it seems Georgia's a slight favorite. Alabama ends up winning a close one. So we'll see if that's the case on Saturday. But these are just in my mind, these are always the definition of a coin flip game. And that's what makes them so exciting. I know some people are probably tired of it, but I think we always enjoy when you get to watch those two teams go head to head. So we'll dive in more to Alabama and Georgia, kind of break down some of the keys to that matchup, what we think Alabama needs to do to win against Georgia for the second time this year, and how that matchup might look a little different than the first time. We'll do that a little bit later in the show. But quickly, I did want to transition real quick because we do have some exciting coaching news here around the Birmingham area that came out yesterday that I wanted to hit on. So, not official yet, but it does appear, based on reports, that UAB is getting ready to hire Steve Englehart. He is the head coach of Presbyterian College in South Carolina right now. He's been there for 4 seasons. And so you look at what he did in his first season in 2022. They were 1-10, finished 0-8 in conference play. Now in 2025, they are 10-2 and 6-2 in conference play. So again, I know not gonna be honest. I've never watched a Presbyterian football game before. I think there's a lot of people that are not gonna be familiar with this guy, and that's safe to say. But clearly, right, you can go and look at that, and there's a track record of taking what was clearly a very bad program and turning them into a very competitive program in a short period of time. So that is the latest there on the UAB front. Whenever that becomes official, of course, we will share more of an update there with you. But I know a lot of people have been asking for updates on the UAB coaching search and what's going on. But reports were coming out later yesterday that Steve Englehart from Presbyterian is expected to be the hire there for UAB. But one hire that is official, that would be Damian Sanford Bulldogs, right down the road from us here at JOX, as they have announced that John Grass is going to be the next head coach. They're taking over for Chris Hatcher after his departure earlier this season. And John Grass is no stranger to the state of Alabama. If you go and look at, he kind of made a name for himself in the high school ranks here. He's worked at Asheville, Eufaula, Hoover, head coach at Moody, head coach at Spain Park, Oxford High School. So really, really put in. I mean, he was a high school coach for over 20 years in the state of Alabama. Then he spent some time at Jacksonville State as head coach and also as offensive coordinator there. And now he's been at Clemson on Dabo's staff for the last 4 seasons, I believe. Yeah, 3 or 4 seasons. And so now he's going to go to Sanford. But overall, 72-26 record as a college head coach. So that's pretty good. And yeah, I think this is a good hire for Sanford. I'm excited to see that they have a new man in charge. And I know Damian, somebody that you're going to get to know here as we head into next season.
Yeah, man, and Coach Gross, he's a winner. He's a program builder, man. And when you look at what he was able to do at Jacksonville State, his alma mater, I mean, he had him in the FCS National Championship game. And had he not ran across, Carson Wentz and those boys at North Dakota State, he would have had a championship. And that, when you look at what Sanford's been able to do and their commitment to athletics, this is an excellent hire. Because I promise you, he's going to get in there and they're going to flip this thing around quickly. And, of course, we love what Coach Hatcher was able to build during his time there. And I don't think it's going to be that big of an offensive drop-off because we just know how it was in the air raid when Coach Hatcher was there. This is a little bit more balanced. Like, he's not afraid to – he doesn't mind getting into a fist fight and making a run game and having that being able to win you football games. But, man, he's a great coach. And I'm excited for what Sanford is going to build. I'm excited to see what his staff is going to look like moving forward. But at the FCS level, there are people that know John Gross and the success that he's been able to provide on the sidelines. I'm expecting big things for him over there in Homewood, man, right down the road.
Yeah, exciting times, no doubt, as new eras beginning for a lot of programs here in the state. Auburn, UAB, Sanford. So a lot of optimism to go around for football here in the state of Alabama. But we've got a lot more left to get into. Yesterday was the early signing day. How did Alabama and Auburn end up? Auburn making a pretty impressive jump yesterday. We'll tell you just how high they went next here on JOX. Well, welcome back into Morning Jocks here on a chilly Thursday morning. Appreciate you tuning into us each and every day here on Jocks as we continue the college football conversation and just kind of putting a bow on the early signing day from yesterday. As I think if you're both Alabama and Auburn fans, you got to feel pretty happy about where things ended up for you. Auburn, a little more work to do yesterday. Alabama kind of had a lot of their hay in the barn already. And so as we sit here right now in the aftermath of yesterday's signing period. Alabama, according to Rivals and On Three, they have the sixth best class in the country. They are sitting right behind Ohio State and Georgia. So Alabama's sixth overall, number two in the SEC. They had 20 total commits as of right now, 3 5-stars, 10 4-stars, and 7 3-star guys. And then if you look at Auburn, so Alabama, they'd kind of stayed around that. They kind of fluctuated like between 4 and 6 really for a good part of the day. Auburn yesterday, at least according to On Three and Rivals, they started the day at 63rd. And then as the day progressed, they started to climb up slowly but surely, and now they're at 37. So again, we were talking about this yesterday, and it's obviously Auburn wasn't going to finish with the 60th best recruiting class. But it was a question of how high could they get yesterday. And I still think, again, they're probably going to end up with a top 15 class. Their numbers aren't quite there. So they have 17. Again, Alabama had 20. Auburn has 17. 5 4-stars, 12 3-star guys there for the Auburn Tigers. And you had a couple of, I guess kind of later additions there, like Wilson Zierer. He's an offensive lineman from Germany, actually. So that'll be nice there. A big old boy up front for the Auburn Tigers. You had Tavian Branch, a big-time defensive line recruit as well that came in later on in the day too. So again, some nice surprises in there for Auburn. And overall, I mean, when you're able to go, again, you jumped up 26 spots in the rankings in one day. I think you've got to feel pretty good about where you sit right now. So again, work to do, and we know obviously a lot of work going to be done. You would imagine the transfer portal for Auburn as well. But to go to 37th right now, I think you got to feel pretty good about that, considering you just had a brand new head coach walk in the door less than a week ago. And I mean, he was already. I mean, again, he was flipping. You got a quarterback that had committed to USF that flipped to Auburn yesterday. So you've got stuff that's working or in the works there. But I think you got to feel pretty good about where you sit right now. So Alabama at 6, Auburn at 37, as we move on and wait and see how the rest of these classes ultimately come together. But there was something else that happened last night with Auburn that some people seem to take a little bit of interest in. I know I certainly did. And this was kind of a surprise. I guess that was probably the point, that it was a surprise. But we haven't talked about Hugh Freeze a ton in the last couple of weeks because
Well, he doesn't have a job.
We're moving forward, right?
Yeah.
We're not looking in the past. We're moving forward.
He doesn't work there anymore.
Correct. Well, for the first time yesterday, it's about a 40-minute interview. It's in video form. You can watch the whole thing. But Hugh Freeze sat down with Justin Hokanson from On Three. And this is the first time that he has, as far as I'm aware, publicly spoke out since the firing at Auburn. And, he kind of addressed that at the beginning of the interview, if you watch it, where, he kind of went into how he's had a lot of opportunities or a lot of different people or platforms ask him to do interviews or speak out about whether it was his experience at Auburn or just come on and be an analyst for something. And he said he didn't want to do any media until the season was over and they hired a new coach because he didn't want it to be, he said he wanted to do things the right way, Damian. He wanted to do things the right way. So he was going to wait until the season was over and the new head coach was in place before he started talking about openly, I guess, about his time at Auburn. And so there is some good stuff in there. And again, if you're an Auburn fan and whether it's a spite watch for you or you just generally are interested in kind of how things went on behind the scenes and kind of his philosophy on how things are now a few weeks removed from everything that happened at Auburn, I would say it's worth checking out, even if you can't watch the full 40 minutes. But there's one part in particular that a lot of people seem to be gravitating towards. And that was when he was talking about Jackson Arnold. So I'm going to read you this quote. This is from Hugh Freeze. This is what he said in the interview, or part of what he said in the interview about Jackson Arnold. Quote, "Let's be clear. This is not a beat up on Jackson, but certainly it didn't work out to the level that he nor I both expected for him and our team, and that's why I'm sitting here." End quote. Now, look, I think we all agree that Jackson Arnold, the call is a bust. Didn't work out. For whatever reason, you paid him a lot of money. He wasn't good. So, yeah, it's fair to say it's just like in the NFL. You draft a first-round quarterback and he's a bust. GM and coach probably aren't there in a couple years, right?
Correct.
This is how it goes, and we know that. Who's responsible for evaluating these guys and ultimately deciding who Auburn spends money on to bring into the roster? Who does that?
I've heard that it's the head coach.
Okay.
So I've seen.
I have heard similar rumors.
Right. Can't deny nor confirm, but I've heard that it's the head coach.
I have heard similar rumors. What a clown, man. You got fired and you're still blasting those kids. Like that, it's embarrassing. It is. Everything, for the one Auburn fan out there that actually still respected Hugh Freeze as a person, everything that I think has happened in the last month or so since he got let go, whether it was on the field or off the field and now stuff like this, you got to feel a lot better.
Yeah. Also, I don't know. I look at this from this perspective. Okay, yeah, you struck out on Jackson Arnold, but you are still responsible for every other position on that football field. You
had two other quarterbacks on there that seemed to be a lot better than Jackson.
Now you see where I'm going. It's, kind of gave you a grace period with Peyton Thorne. And now looking back on it, Peyton Thorne may have been...
Wasn't nearly as bad as we thought he was.
You're right.
Actually, I'd kind of like to see Peyton Thorne play somewhere else. Might have been good.
You're right. Now you kind of look at Peyton Thorne of, man, you know what? Maybe it wasn't you. Now, you can look at it 50-50 like some of it was, but a lot of the blame I was putting on you, now looking back on it, it was, I'm sorry. I apologize. But the Jackson Arnold thing, it's one, we had seen at Oklahoma what it looked like. When he was on, yeah, he looked great. But then there were lapses where he just was not a good quarterback. And the first game of the season against Baylor, you didn't ask him to do too much, ran the ball effectively, and you're kind of sitting back like, okay, maybe we can start to see some things. And right about, Ball State, it is what it is. But South Alabama game, you started to kind of see some things of, okay, this offense does not look like it needs to be. It's not where it needs to be. And then Oklahoma and Texas A&M coming to town, and it's, okay, this offensive line is not good, but also we have a quarterback issue when he's not throwing the ball. Think about how big it was when we got the clip of, Hugh Freeze throwing his visor during that practice when Jackson wouldn't let the ball go. Well, now we start to see that was a recurring thing.
Yeah, he had already been dealing with that frustration for like 3 months.
And then we hear, coming into the season that, I want my quarterbacks to leave, practice confident, so we're going to take it a little easy on them.
Mm-hmm.
You're the head coach, man. That cannot happen. They need to see the closest thing to game-like experiences during the week because they already don't get touched at practice. Like they
Wouldn't that be your first sign that maybe this guy's not as good as you thought when you have to tell people to take it?
Thank you. And also, he came in there during the spring. So you're telling me from the spring to week 6 or 7, you didn't realize that, hey, maybe we just don't have – maybe Jackson Arnold's just not that guy. Maybe with all this talent that we have around him, it's still not enough. And I don't know. Again, we're going back to the Kentucky game where, okay, yeah, you get Ashton Daniels in there, and you have this yin and yang of, okay, yeah, we're gonna pull Ashton Daniels at the 2-minute drive to put Jackson Arnold back into the ball game. There are just so many other pieces and so many other facets that went wrong. That one that you even brought up his name is kind of a slap in the face of Jackson Arnold of like, wow, like, okay, now tell me how you really feel about me now that you're gone. So your evaluation of him was off. And then when you get him there, you are the quarterback guy. Like you're the offensive guy, and you still can't fix it. It's a bad marriage both ways, and yet because, like you said, you're in the situation because, yeah, you struck out on a quarterback when the whole reason you were hired was because of the offensive side of the ball, and all it did was get worse year after year after year.
Well, it's just like the best analogy I can think of something this week is like it's all the Texas fans that are, we're not getting in the playoff because we played Ohio State. No, you're not getting in the playoff because you lost to a really bad Florida team. It's the same. It's like, Hugh, you didn't get fired because Jackson Arnold wasn't a great quarterback. Now, is that part of it? Yeah, I mean, technically that is part of the conversation, but no, you got fired because you went and spent 7 figures and evaluated him and decided that was going to be the best guy. And he was probably the 3rd best quarterback you had on your roster, at least in the second half of the season, and you continue to put him out there.
You know who he needs to
That's
apologize?
why you fired.
You know who he needs to apologize to? Jarquez Hunter for wasting his time for 2 years when he could have been.
That's a good point.
He could have been the SEC's leading rusher back-to-back years. But you know what? Nah, you wanted the system to run through Peyton Thorne and his decision-making. See where that led you. So,
well, he was distracted in film school.
I'm not going to disagree with you there. I'm not going to disagree. He had his mind on other things.
Mm-hmm.
But also, even with that one game sit down,
mm-hmm.
he was still toting that thing. Again, like, it goes back. There are moments in Hugh Freeze's tenure at Auburn where you can look at it and say, you know what? Maybe this is just not supposed to work. Maybe this isn't. You're not that guy. Because for everything that you were frustrated with Malzahn, all the offense looks stale, looks the same. We know by formation what it's going to look like. Well, hell, it was effective. The defense probably knew exactly what was coming, and they still couldn't stop it for, pretty much a decade. Then you get Brian Harsin in there, and, I mean, it's a train wreck, but by God, you had TJ Finley in 4 overtimes against Alabama in the Iron Bowl. And you can talk about week after week how close you are, but you never got over that. That's a psychological admit. That's between the ears because the talent that Auburn had the time you were there, Gus Malzahn and Brian Harsin probably could have done better with the talent that you cultivated in that situation because you did everything you were supposed to do except win football games. That's why you're in the position that you are.
Yeah, well, the good news for Hugh Freeze is Penn State still doesn't have a coach, so maybe eventually if they get far enough down the line, he'll get a phone call. As they currently sit, I'm assuming this would be the equivalent of 165th in the recruiting rankings for Penn State. Just a little update from yesterday. I know some people were asking about that on the Courtesy GMC text line. But, yeah, maybe that's the last time we'll talk about Hugh Freeze for a long time. Unless Jackson Arnold does a rebuttal interview, which I would be very curious to hear what Jackson Arnold had to say about that. But anyways, let's move back on to the SEC championship game coming up this weekend. How's that game? How will it look different maybe than the first time Alabama and Georgia faced off this weekend? And what are going to be the big keys if Alabama wants to beat Georgia and win SEC title for the first time under Kalen DeBoer? We'll talk about Alabama, Georgia next. 6:36 here on your Thursday morning. Appreciate you joining us here on Morning Jocks as we are about to dive into Alabama and Georgia, the rematch in the SEC Championship coming up on Saturday. And as we know, right, 10-1 for Alabama in their last 11 games against Georgia. That is going back to Nick Saban's first year, which was, I guess, if that you count that, you're 10-2 in your last 12 games against Georgia. But then obviously, ever since 2008, the blackout game in Athens against Matthew Stafford and those great Georgia teams, it's been all Alabama. But Georgia did win the one in the national championship, which, if to be fair, right, I'll give credit to Kirby. He chose a good one to win, Damian.
Yeah.
We let him have that one. We let him have one, and he said, hey, I know this might be asking a lot, but I did a lot for you guys in the past. You think you could maybe just let us have one of the national champions? I guess so, Kirby. Especially after what Tua did to him the first time. It was like, you know what? we kind of owe you one. So, but besides that, it has been all Alabama since that 2008 game in Athens. And it's interesting how, again, you know, I kind of talked about it at the beginning of the show. It just feels like every time we get this game, we talk about it in the same way, right? And it's the same narrative of, okay, I think Georgia's maybe the better team on paper going in, but yet you know Alabama is somehow probably going to find a way to win. And at this point, right, based on what we've seen the last few times, are we going to be surprised if Alabama, like in the Iron Bowl, what if they're up 17-0 in the second quarter? No one's going to be surprised by that but you know what? Everyone's also going to go, oh, okay, well, this game will be, 20-20 here in 30 minutes, right? Like we all kind of have these preconceived notions of how it's going to go, and to be fair, like probably fairly likely that some of those things will happen because we've seen this matchup so many times, and these are, as programs evolve and we talk about how depth and things aren't what they used to be, and both of these teams are banged up, but again, every time these teams play, the reason it's so good and so competitive is because these are two teams that are essentially built to beat each other. Like when you really think about it, the way that they are styled, they are built to compete in the SEC and play tough physical football. And so you're getting, essentially the best version of football when these two teams play a lot of the time. And obviously, the motivation and all that is going to speak for itself anytime that you get a chance to knock off either Alabama or Georgia. So, for me, when I look at this game, there's so many questions that I have. Was last week a fluke with the run game, or is that something that is going to translate on the field against Georgia? Because, again, in the first matchup, Alabama wasn't great running the ball, but there were times where when they needed to run the ball late that they could do it. So now the question is, are you going to be able to do that for the full 4 quarters? Is it going to look like the first game, or are we going to have the problem that Alabama was running into kind of before the Auburn and East Illinois games, where like the Oklahoma game and stuff, like they had started to get a little worse. Like they weren't good running the football earlier in the year, but they kind of got worse at it over the kind of that middle part of the season. And then the Auburn game, you're like, oh, okay, so is that
been there?
Yeah, is that something that you can just do now, or was this a just kind of a one-time thing? Obviously, though, I think it's safe to say Ty Simpson going to have a better day than he did against Auburn, even if the running game is good. For Alabama to have success, because you remember the key to that first game was Alabama was 13 of 19 on first down. And in the first, they started like 8 of 8 on third down or something like that. That's going to be a difficult thing to replicate. They were bad on third down against Auburn. That was somewhere they really, really struggled. And, they haven't really had that kind of performance like they did against Georgia since that game. Now, yeah, you're typically not going to go 13 of 19 on third down. That doesn't happen, right? But again, it's just how many of those things that worked in the first meeting, are you able to replicate those things? Because if you are, and then you add in the element of being able to run the ball more effectively, probably leans in your favor a good bit. I also think the fact that the defensive front for Alabama, I know LT Overton is going to be out, but I do think that there is success to be had there against the Georgia offensive line. And conversely, Georgia has gotten better at getting after the quarterback. They were not good at it earlier in the season. They've done better. But that's still an area where I think if you're Alabama's offensive line, again, yes, do they have problems with consistency at times? Sure. But when do they always play their best? In these types of matchups.
Yep.
Not saying that's a guarantee, but again, I think you have to feel pretty good. These types of games normally are won in the trenches. And if you're an Alabama fan, I think you kind of look at the matchup and go, okay, unless something just kind of out of nowhere happens or there's a big injury or something on, maybe Alabama's offensive line, I think you kind of feel pretty good on paper going into this game, how those work. And then obviously, Damian, got to protect the football because we know last week you didn't turn the ball over. That's probably why you won the game. And that was coming off 7 straight games in which Ty Simpson had turned the ball over. But you know what he didn't do in the first Georgia game? No, he had a fumble, didn't he? He had that one fumble.
Yeah, he did.
He did have that one fumble. But if that's something, again, if you can take that element away from it, you're going to be in good shape, I think.
I think for Alabama, it's the secondary. It's the secondary. What they were able to do against Auburn, and we know the explosiveness that Auburn has. It was a lot of broken plays. They ended up being explosive.
Yeah.
But for drive on drive, play up on play, Alabama secondary kind of corralled everything, and they were all over the field. I think the development of Dijon Lee, and for somebody, his size is a complete mismatch, and everything else that he possesses, but with Bray Hubbard, Keon Sabb, older guys, and Xavier Brown, when they needed plays in the secondary, they've gotten them.
Mm-hmm.
And especially for Bray Hubbard, to see what he looked like in the first game of the season, I have never seen anybody, when I say flip a switch from game one, and ever since then, we have not had a discussion about what effort, getting after it, because he seems to be always around the football. And you know what Georgia has in their skill set. Like, those skill guys that they have, this is probably the best unit that they've had at receiver. Now, they've had moments with Ladd McConkey. We've seen what London Humphrey's been able to do. But when you have Noah Thomas, Zachariah Branch, and London Humphreys, and, of course, their tight ends, like, this is probably the most explosion that they've had as far as all the pieces are there at the same time. So I think the emphasis for Alabama is just read your keys, because I think that Gunnar Stockton has improved. And he's shown that, hey, if I have to go out here and air this thing out, I can. But I think that with Alabama's secondary being opportunistic and being around the football, they've got to muddy it up for them. They've got to disguise some things, and I think that bodes well for them. And I flip it over to the offensive side, Ty Simpson, be in control. Simple as that. Because one thing that we saw against Auburn that kind of helped was the run game and him being able to use his legs when they needed to. No, I'm not expecting him to go out here and run quarterback power like Jalen Milroe. Not expecting him to hit quarterback counter. But when he has moments and he has green grass, take it. Because I do think the battle between Gunnar Stockton and Ty Simpson, they're very similar in a lot of ways. It's the fact that, hey, they may have everything covered up, but the one thing you cannot account for is their athletic ability. They got some wiggle to him, especially Ty Simpson. When he has to break it down, he's busted a few long ones of like, okay, we got to honor this. So I think the game plan for Alabama, Ty Simpson, you be in control, because this offense is going to go on how you go. And we saw it at times against Auburn that, hey, when he was a little inaccurate, you kind of have to pump the brakes a little bit, and it's like, all right, let's run this thing and just let's open it up for you. We got you. So I think that this game is going to look like years past, where it'll be a punch here, a gut punch there, both sides. But in the end, we'll know who the better team is in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and again, you go and you look at that first matchup, and Alabama won that football game because they dominated the first half of the game. Georgia, honestly, dominated the second half of the game, but just not to the same degree that Alabama had done in the first half. And we all know Kirby Smart is the master when it comes to making adjustments at halftime and things of that nature. So we'll be doing our picks tomorrow, or I'll be doing my picks tomorrow. But I know, Damien, you're going to be out. You're taking a little time off for the holidays. So do you want to? Have you made your mind up? I guess, so to speak, on Alabama and Georgia. Do you have a score prediction for us, since you won't be here tomorrow?
I'll do it after the break.
Still got to think about it for a second.
Just got to get the final touches in.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Well, you heard it here. Damien's pick. What does he think is going to happen? His score prediction for Alabama, Georgia. That and your text next. Oh, the highly anticipated prediction. As we put a bow on the Thursday edition of Morning Jocks. Welcome back in. We'll hand you off to McElroy and Kublik in the morning here in about 10 minutes. But before we get to that, we have a major announcement from one Damian Mitchell as he is about to give us his prediction for the SEC Championship. Damian will be enjoying a little time off tomorrow. And so we normally do our picks. I will give you my pick tomorrow when we normally do the pick segment here on the show. But Damian, if you are you ready? Are you mentally prepared?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And just kind of thinking out loud.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, you're going to Atlanta to cover the game.
I will be at the game, yes.
Oh, so you're not. I thought you would pull like a Kirk Herbstreit and just kind of we just go over the keys. I didn't know you got a chance to make a pick. Oh, interesting.
Well, I'm not broadcasting the game, so I think I'm allowed to still give a prediction.
No, but
he's about to do a reverse Pat McAfee.
Listen, there are some things in life that you just got to accept. While Georgia is a great football team, they have been for a lot of years. They're only the big dogs when the real big dog ain't there.
Mm.
And you brought up a stat. Last 11 times that Alabama and Georgia have played, it's 10-1 in favor of Alabama. I think Saturday, we make that 11-1. I think Alabama's the better football team, and I think it's psychological. Georgia can't get it done. They just can't. Even when Georgia has the better team on paper, still can't find a way to get it done. And I think that trend continues on Saturday. I think Alabama wins a close one. Give me the Alabama Crimson Tide 31. Give me the Georgia Bulldogs 24.
So what will be the larger margin of victory since you're predicting an Alabama blowout of Georgia? Will it be Alabama over Georgia or Maplesville over Wadley tonight? What will be the larger margin of victory?
Give me Maplesville over Wadley. Maplesville defense is legit now. We built different.
I know you're.
We got blood. We out for blood today, dog. 3 p.m. Protect.
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
There you go. I know a lot of people are excited for that one as well. But yeah, Damon, he likes Georgia there, he likes Alabama.
Thank you.
Sorry, he likes Alabama to beat Georgia in a close one on Saturday for the SEC championship. Speaking of the Super 7, shout out, big surprise, right? Who would have guessed it? Thompson, they win their 6th state title in the last 7 years.
Oh boy.
Smoked them. Yeah.
I mean, Opelika, you put up a good fight, early on.
Yeah, forced him into 2 early field goals, and then it was
got ugly from there.
Well, when you've got an Alabama commit at quarterback, Damien.
Yeah.
Come on.
But Bama, baby.
But yeah, no, congratulations to Thompson. Again, obviously dominant here in the high school ranks in the state of Alabama as they kind of got the Super 7 kicked off yesterday with their championship win. And now it's going to be an exciting next couple of days. And, of course, we will all of us here at JOX supporting Maplesville in their matchup against Wadley. So got to support Damien's alma mater there. But some of you chiming in on the Courtesy GMC text line. See, this one just says Wadley by 1,000.
I just don't think so.
Says you got to stop the run game, Damien. Got to stop Wadley's run game.
That is true. Easier said than done. But listen,
got a couple of. Are y'all the Red Devils?
We are indeed.
Okay, see, we got a few Go Red. I didn't know if that was y'all or the.
Yes, sir.
The other side.
Nah, they're the Bulldogs.
Okay, that's good.
Very fitting.
That's good. Let's see. This text rolling in, it says, the problem with Alabama's running success against Auburn is it was against 5 in the box. DJ Durkin wasn't letting them get behind them.
Okay.
This text says, Ryan Williams tends to do good things against Georgia. I'm curious if he bounces back from not playing against Auburn as well as the drop TD against Georgia. See, that's what I was waiting for. It's just, I'm not saying that what you're saying isn't true. It's just funny that, oh, yeah, he always plays great against Georgia, and then 5 words later, except for that one time he dropped that wide open touchdown. Yeah, in the first game. Alabama was still able to win. But, yeah, probably going to need him to catch that one. To be fair, though, Georgia would have won that game if they hadn't had the exact same thing happen to them in the first one. So it just kind of happens.
That is true.
And then this says, from Bama abroad, Ty Simpson leading the Tide to an SEC title and reminding Kirby who daddy is. I missed the show Monday and Tuesday. Did y'all already discuss which bowl game you think Auburn will? Okay.
The disrespect.
I see where we're going there. All right. Appreciate all of you joining in this morning. We're back tomorrow at 6 a.m. McElroy and Kublik in the morning. Those guys.